welcome back to Challenge Call Podcast. I'm your host, Max.
And I am Avery. How are you guys?
All right, we are back at it, recording on a Thursday night. Recording a little bit earlier, so the Thursday night football game is not on quite yet, but I will be flipping to that once it starts. Avery, what are you up to?
I'm drinking a Modelo. It's pretty tasty. I haven't had one in a while, so.
I'm drinking a Bud Light Platinum in my favorite little Iowa koozie. It's a little sweater. It's got a hood, some drawstrings, and a little pouch right here, technically. So
fancy.
This is my favorite bottle koozie.
Oh, man. But no, I'm good, man. You want to hear this? I got 5 weeks left of college classes. That's it.
Nice.
5 weeks?
I've got 2 weeks left of college football, and then I will be on the road.
That sounds terrible. But
it's actually a good time. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, you know, pros and cons. Like, love it to a degree, hate it to a degree. It's all.
That means you're gonna come see me soon, huh? Maybe.
Yes.
All right. On my yearly visit from Max, I'm excited.
Yes, yeah, I will. I had to think about that for a second because some plans got changed, but we'll discuss that more later. But we'll go ahead and get rolling with the podcast, and we will start with our sports news, as always, that we're doing lately. Avery, give us our first sports news update.
We have a World Series champion. The Texas Rangers came out and destroyed the Diamondbacks. They won the series 4-1, and it wasn't even close, man. So congrats to the Rangers, much deserved. I kind of wanted to see the Diamondbacks win this just because they were the 6th seed. The Rangers were the 4th seed. So, it's still, underdog kind of won it, but I like the 6th seed Diamondbacks. And they ended up losing 4-1. Rangers.
So there was a 4 seed versus a 6 seed in the World Series.
That's wild, right?
That is a true just underdog matchup. Like, there is no underdog anymore because they're both just there.
But yeah, congrats to the Texas Rangers. Texas wins it big once again.
Shout out to the Rangers. On a more somber note, we got a little hockey news here. There was actually a crazy incident that happened over in the UK, a hockey game going on in England. A player actually had their throat slit by a skate, and they ended up passing away. And is that just not the craziest thing you've ever heard?
We've seen a lot of injuries, and we've seen a lot of, we haven't seen a death on the field or a court or on ice in a long time. And this was it right here. Adam Johnson, man, it was crazy. Like, it sucked. Did you watch the highlight of it?
No, I could. Well, I think I did. But I couldn't see anything. Like, I missed it, whatever I watched quickly.
Yeah, I watched a slowed down version of the highlight, and the opponent, I don't even know his name. He's under investigation right now by the CIA since it happened in England. CIA and
because it looked like when you watch it, or the speculation right now is that it looks intentional.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means intentional, like I was trying to kill him, or just intentional, like, hey, you were, fighting during a hockey game, like if it was an intentional kick. Like, I don't know how far they're going to say.
He swung his leg up and literally hit him right in the throat. Like, he swung his leg up.
Yes.
If it wasn't intentional, why would you swing your leg up?
For sure. Well, no, but that's not what I'm saying. Like, right. Intentional in the regard of, like, I'm trying to kill you. Like, if I was holding a gun to you or something and I shot you, that's intentionally, like, trying to kill you. But if I was, like, just throwing a swing at you, I'm not necessarily trying to kill you. I'm just trying to hurt you. You know what I mean? Like, because hockey, like, it is a very violent sport. Like, there's a lot of fighting and stuff like that happens. And kicking is a totally normal, like, fuck you kind of thing to do. Like, was he specifically outright, like I'm gonna fucking kill this guy, or was he just kicking him because he's an aggressive hockey player and hockey players fight,
I think it's a mixed bag because, like, in sports, man, you think about it, you see red. Like, sometimes, like, you get in the heat of the moment and you see red. I think he was intentionally trying to hurt him, but charges do get put on him, and he is found, like, and he has to go to court and everything like that. Like, he still killed a guy, and it's still not premeditated, but it's still murder.
Yeah, so it would be what? Is that 2nd degree homicide?
Probably 3rd degree homicide.
3rd degree?
3rd degree, maybe manslaughter. Like, it's kind of that gray area.
And that's what gets into the question that I'm asking. Like, manslaughter would be, I was not trying to kill you.
Right.
I just did end up killing you. Manslaughter.
That's
third degree murder is like, well, I low key was trying to kill you, like just in the moment, like pure, not premeditate, like
Yeah.
you're not the player that stole my wife or something. And I was like, when I go on the ice today, I'm gonna kill this guy. But
Yeah, no, I don't think he was intentionally trying to kill the guy. I think he was intentionally trying to hurt the guy, which I think
for sure.
if charges do get pressed, it is going to be considered probably manslaughter at that point, and that guy's career is over. A little bit about Adam Johnson, though. He was a former NHL player, and I think that's why we got the news over here so much. He played for the Pittsburgh Penguins for a couple of years, and if that would have happened in the United States, it would have been everywhere. That would have been.
And well, here's the thing, though. The big key of that, though, is if that would have happened in the United States, this guy might be alive, frankly.
Yeah.
Because hockey is a lot more popular in the States, and at hockey game or at NHL games, I should say, maybe not necessarily I don't know about college hockey, but definitely not high school or youth hockey. But at NHL games, there are ambulances. There are like medical staff, like they are present just waiting for those kind of things to happen. Like you got a situation like that and there's a first response instantly.
Yeah.
Over in the UK, it's not as big. It probably would be treated more like a high school hockey game here or something. The big thing is they didn't have an ambulance like at the scene ready to go rush him to the hospital. They had to wait on one to get there.
And he bled out in the locker room.
Yes.
It's insane. Like, yeah, I agree, man. If it would have happened in the NHL, he'd probably still be alive, or even in the Canadian football hockey league, he would have still been alive. So, at the end of the day, it's the sad reality of sports. These guys are putting their lives on the line. Even if you don't think about it, they are every single day. And he lost his life for a sport that he loved, though. So,
yeah, it's just a rough situation all around. Hopefully we don't see anything like this again. You would think that there would have to be some sort of changes made. Like one of the changes is they actually do make like Kevlar, like almost chokers. Like they low key look like chokers that are just like little Kevlar strips and stuff. You have to wear them in youth hockey when you play. We might start seeing that being a requirement in like the NHL or higher levels just because of this incident happening.
In like an incident like this is the only way that type of stuff can change and protocols can get put in place.
Yes.
Because if it didn't happen, everybody would go on.
I wouldn't say the only way, but I would say the most effective way, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But on a lighter note, we'll move on from hockey here. We will get into a little bit of NBA because we do have some NBA action officially going outside of the very first official NBA game with the Nuggets. I haven't really watched any NBA. I'm still in football mode. I am still almost entirely in football mode, so it is difficult to sit down and watch other sports because if football's on, I'm watching football. If football's not on, I honestly don't really care to watch TV sometimes. But currently, the Kings are 2-2. Those two losses are to the Warriors, a playoff team we faced last year. It's a little disappointing. One of those losses, I regretfully have to say, is due to Keegan Murray missing a game-winning three-pointer. So sad, but hey, you're gonna miss sometimes. It's fine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in my Bucks, man, 2-2. I mean, they're not doing as great as I thought they would. They started off the year with a comeback win, and now they just kind of they're just getting started. It's new dynamic there with Damian Lillard. Giannis.
There's a long season ahead.
82 games, and we're only 78 in. I mean, we kept mentioning that during the MLB season, so here we go. 78 more games to go. Hopefully, the Bucks can turn it around and start playing championship caliber basketball.
Meanwhile, the Denver Nuggets are 4-1, looking like they came back ready to kick some butt and win another championship potentially.
Dude, Jokic. I hate Jokic, but I love Jokic because he does not put any effort into the NBA. It's a side hustle for the guy.
He looks like the laziest basketball player who's just fucking amazing at it.
There's this kid that we went to high school with. He was 6'7", or like 6'6", 6'7", and he just he was tall and he was taller than everybody else. He wasn't good, but he was tall, and that's who. Every time I see Jokic, that's who he reminds me of.
Yes, but Jokic definitely probably had the height advantage as a kid, just towering over everybody, made it easy for him, a little lazy. But typically you see that, and those guys have a hard time when they actually start facing some real competition, like around college and whatnot. Jokic, not the case. He is still balling out, NBA MVP, just doing it all. But speaking of basketball, and also mentioning college basketball a little bit, college basketball is officially starting back up on November 6th. That is a day that is coming up. Is that a Monday, a Tuesday? I don't even know.
That is a Monday.
Monday. So starting on Monday, one of the opening. I'll let you go ahead and talk about one of the opening games on that day.
Yeah, one of the opening games is my UNO Mavericks, man. We played Doane University. It's weird because Doane is a D2 school, and you never see a D2 school facing a D1 school in college football. But in basketball, this happens all the time.
Yeah, well, we've even seen there are Division III schools that have played Division I schools. I think we talked about this last season on this pod. We talked about just the difference of you can put 5 guys, no matter what the skill level is, against each other. It might be brutal, but it's not going to get anybody hurt like it would in football.
Right. For sure. Yeah, no. And so this is like a tune-up game for UNO. And I'm excited because they didn't have the best season last year. They had a first-year head coach, so we're going into the second year with our new head coach. And hopefully he can kind of turn around UNO. We're always known as the stepbrother of Omaha because we have Creighton, which is a powerhouse in college basketball. And so, it kind of sucks, being a UNO Maverick basketball fan and then, having Creighton right next door. And you're like, I can never have a good season.
That must be how Iowa State fans feel all the time, with Iowa being right down the road. But Iowa's opening basketball game is going to be versus North Dakota, so also a bit of a tune-up game for them. That's actually happening on the 7th, on Tuesday. So depending on what time that is, I might be able to watch this, actually, because there's no football on Tuesday. But speaking of tune-up games for them and whatnot, and higher levels playing lower levels, I just had a thought. Everybody starts out with tune-up games, right? It's notorious that everybody always starts against a lower opponent, kind of has a bit of a tune-up, and gets started with an easy couple wins here. The first 2-3 games are usually lower-level opponents. That's only the case for the highest levels, though. Lower levels don't get a tune-up game. They get their asses handed to them by upper-level schools.
Well, and that's not the case. Look at UNO versus Doane. UNO is not a great basketball program. They haven't been in recent bias. They haven't been in recent years.
But you're still playing down.
But we have to play down because we can't schedule Iowa State or Iowa or even a Drake because we would get murdered. Or we can't even schedule Creighton. And that's why we have to play down. So there are tune-up games for those lower level D1 schools.
Oh, for sure. Yes, obviously. And that's the case because if there are 3 FBS schools, well, we're not in football, but if there are 3 Power 5 schools, then there's 6 General 5 schools. Then there's 24 Division 2. Then there's 50 Division 3. Obviously those 3 schools can't, there's going to be other schools that have to play down as well. But in a general speaking term, Division 1 schools play down. The Power 5 play almost FCS level. I know there's not levels like that. I just can't get my brain out of football. But they play down to a degree. Even Division 2s will play down to Division 3s and stuff like that. I'm just saying, in the general landscape, only the top, higher school, everybody that's a high level Division 1 plays down, obviously. Because, who are they going to, there's no one to play up to. If you're not playing one of those schools, then you play down. If you're not playing one of those, if you're not playing a down game at that next lower level, you're playing. So it's just a trickle effect of if you're not playing up to get your butt handed to you, you're scheduling a game where you're going to play down.
Yeah, and unfortunately, D3 schools get the rough end of the stick because there's nobody to play down to.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. That comes down to scheduling because there is a very, very big difference between a good conference and a bad conference in Division 3.
For sure. And so, it'll be cool to see college basketball start to get a swing of things and us to follow it throughout the year, especially when March Madness time comes around. I love March Madness.
March Madness is a great time. By that point, I'm fully invested in basketball. Football's over. It's done with. I can move on with my life. But speaking of football, it is still football season. Wow, TCU is getting their butts handed to them by Texas Tech right now. I just looked over at the screen. But more tragic / happy news, take it as you will, I guess, with our Iowa Hawkeyes in the football world, Brian Ferentz. He was fired on Tuesday, earlier this week. I forget what exact day the news broke. Earlier this week, the athletic director at the University of Iowa fired Brian Ferentz. And by fired, I mean they told him that he was not going to be renewed or he was not going to come back at the end of the season, but he will finish the season. That's not how you fire somebody.
Yeah.
That's just, the situation as a whole is a very awkward way. So feelings removed from Ferentz. We'll get into our personal opinions of the firing based on him and what we know and all that jazz. But just the general move of firing them mid-season, but like saying they're going to finish the season first. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because they didn't want to lose Kirk in the process. Because you got to think, firing your son, even if it's for a betterment of the program, has to be tearing Kirk Ferentz up right now. And if you let Brian go right now in the middle of the season, who says Kirk doesn't come out the next day with a press conference and says, "Hey, I'm retiring"?
Sure, but why not wait? Here's my I disagree with that, because if that's the case, you don't fire him till after the season.
True, fair.
Like, why do it now?
Well, we have an interim AD right now, right? There's
Correct.
an interim AD at the University of Iowa.
And speaking of that, the reason the athletic director is the one firing him is because of I'm forgetting the word for it, nepotism. A nepotism law. Since he is the head coach's son, he technically does not work for Kirk. He works for the athletic director. That was a way to get around the fact that the head coach normally manages his assistant staff, but since he is Kirk's direct son, to avoid nepotism, blah, blah, AD. Thought that was a good time to mention that, but continue.
Yeah, no, so I think at the end of the day with it, it is a interim AD. And so she's getting a lot of pressure from a lot of Iowa fans. And we'll mention what type of pressure here in a little bit, but there's been a lot of pressure by Iowa fans. I think she had to make a move. I think at the end of the day, like with the way our season went, he's averaging 19 points per game. There was no way he was going to hit his milestone regardless. And
definitely. But the big thing too with that is also, sure, we're managing 19 points a game, but look at the sideline. We've got Cade, Luke, and Eric all sitting on the side. Like, those are supposed to be our three golden players this season. Like, what offensive coordinator, not to defend Ferentz too much or anything, I'm just playing devil's advocate right now. Like, you tell me what offensive coordinator is going to come in and score more with, like, nothing. They've got nothing to work with. But I'll answer my own question now, because the way that the statement was released, she says something about, we have to do what's best for our students and the school and the pro, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It comes down to recruiting. They don't want a bunch of kids to overlook Iowa because of the kind of shit or whatever that Ferentz heat. They don't want the kind of heat that Ferentz takes as an offensive coordinator. Like, they don't want to play under that. Like, we're trying to recruit receivers, because that's the thing is, if we want to score and we want to be good, we need to recruit good receivers.
right.
Good receivers don't want to play under Brian Ferentz, because Brian Ferentz does not use receivers much. Therefore, if we try to go through this like end of season recruiting process, kids are committing to other schools, all that, they don't want to play under Brian. I think you need to get the news out now that, like, hey, we're going to have a new OC. Brian's not going to be here. Like, please, talented players, like, feel free to actually come join the program now.
Yeah, no, I agree. It does come down to recruiting, because there's a lot of schools that are getting these players instead of Iowa because of Brian Ferentz. The other thing with it too is, it's sad with Brian, right? Like, but at the same time, it was writing on the wall. Like, we came in and we mentioned it in the beginning of the season. There was no way that he was probably going to average 25 points, especially his track record, his history, what we've seen the last 3 to 4 years. We weren't going to average 25 points per game, especially in the Big Ten. It's hard to score that many points. especially at Iowa, where you said we don't get receivers. We don't get those skilled player guys that we need. Yeah, we get tight ends, we get running backs, we get linemen. But do we actually get those guys, or do we develop those guys? Like,
A
that's
little
not
bit of both.
a little bit of both, right? And so if you go truly deep into it, I think it comes back to writing on the wall that this is Kirk Ferentz's last year in Iowa also. And I think that's why they're letting Brian finish out the season with his dad. And I think Kirk Ferentz is going to retire this year.
I think there's a good possibility that he retires after the season, Brian being gone. Of course, he kind of declined to talk about it. When asked about it, as any good football coach should or would say, like, we're in season. The only thing on my mind right now is Northwestern. Like that is truly a football coach mentality. I know our O-line coach says it all the time. We have joint meetings just like with the tight ends and O-lines, pretty much very similar position, especially the way we use our tight ends. We use them very heavy in the run game. We don't throw to them very much. So we normally meet as a group. That very first Monday meeting after the previous game, he does a short little recap of the game. He's like, yeah, we just played so-and-so, but like, it's a new week. I'm on to this game. All that matters is this game. We want to go 1-0 this week. Don't care what the record is. Don't care what we just did last week. Like, we're trying to go 1-0 this week. That's all that matters. And that was essentially Kirk's answer, which is a fair answer to give.
He's speaking like a true football coach at the end of the day.
Which he should. He's a very experienced the longest tenured head coach in college football.
Let me ask you one more thing about this Brian thing, and then we'll move on. What happens if he goes out and our offense averages like 34 points a game? We win the rest of our games, and there's a close Big Ten matchup in the Big Ten championship. Like, at the end of the day,
I believe it's too late for him to stay. And in either case, like, I doubt he would stay anyway. I probably wouldn't. I'd be like, no, you fired me. Fuck you.
I could see him in another role with the Iowa.
Yes. Like, I was just trying to debate the kind of role he would get. I don't know if he'd pop out and go be an OC somewhere else. I don't know if he would take potentially an NFL job at a position level. There are possibilities out there for him.
And you think about it, at the end of the day, like, let's be honest, there's not going to be many coaching OC positions for him unless he wants to drop a level from his performance.
I don't know. Something at Michigan might be open up.
Well, maybe. Michigan. But, yeah, so I don't know, dude. I think at the end of the day, even if he does go, we average 34 points a game, which is not going to happen. It really isn't going to happen. But even if we did, like it's a little too late. It's too little at this point.
I'm curious to see what kind of hire we make following this. I'm curious to see if we have Kirk or not. If we do still have Kirk, we'll hire somebody else, and Iowa will kind of keep doing what Iowa does. If we don't have Kirk, I'm very, very curious to see how Iowa football as a whole changes. Because if that happens, we're not going to be the same heavy tight end, run it down your throat kind of power eye team. It's going to change into kind of what college football has been changing to. And I like that. I think things need to move that way a little bit if you want to keep up in today's game. But at the same time, like, I think we lose a lot of our tight end kind of mindset. Like, we're not going to be tight end if we change our offensive system.
Well, and then that's the other thing. Like, yeah, I want Kirk gone a little bit. Like, not fully. I like Kirk Ferentz. He's longest tenure Iowa coach. He's longest tenure college football coach. But he knows how to develop. He knows how to develop players. He gets 1, 2, 3-star athletes, and he turns them into 5 and first-round picks. And that's what happens every single year. At the end of the day, though, we have Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington joining our conference. And this is the time for new blood. I'm just going to go over to Nebraska, for example. They saw what the writing on the wall with Scott Frost. They were not successful with Scott Frost. They brought in Matt Rule. And right now they're 5-3, and they have a good program going. Their offense isn't really clicking yet, but they show flashes. Their defense is solid, and I think that's exactly what would happen with Iowa. Because at the end of the day, you think about it, Iowa is going to be a great landing spot for a head coach. Like, that's a good job. Because, 1, Iowa holds on to their coaches for years, and they give them multiple chances. 2, we have a good tradition going, and we're a winning college football program. You mention it all the time. 8-win Iowa. I think it would continue under the new head coach. Yeah, we might have a year or two where we go 4 and whatever. We go.
There would definitely be a setback. There would definitely be a setback period.
But wouldn't it be worth it to go 2 years at the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten, but actually be able to compete for a national championship instead
yes.
of just
you have to get bad before you get good. Like nothing's going to change until things get worse before they get better. It's always a life principle. Last thing I'm going to mention at Iowa is, yes, they are going to be making a lot of coaching changes. They're going to go downhill. They're not going to be as good of a team. Hopefully, coming from that, they'll be hiring some coaches. Maybe they'll be looking for a tight end guy, someone local in the area. I don't know. I'll feel that one out. But we'll transition that into a little bit of college football recap here. Speaking of rebuilding programs, going from the bottom to the top and whatnot. Not that Colorado's at the top by any means, but Colorado just played number 23 ranked UCLA. They did lose. I kind of figured they would. 28-16 though, not a horrible game. They held in a little bit. They're on the right track. They're on the right track. They're heading in a good direction. I was just talking with you before we started recording about when they played TCU, and everyone thought they were going to be this crazy dominating team all of a sudden, and it turns out TCU is just losing by like 14 points to Texas Tech right now. But no, Colorado's in the right track, and hopefully, I know we won't see as quick of a change happening at Iowa, but I'd like to see that steady climb still.
For sure. And Colorado, man, they have made some leaps and bounds. And like you say all the time, though, it's a completely new team. Like, they brought in a whole bunch of it was the biggest turnover rate in college football history. And that's the Deion Sanders effect, of course. He did not recruit offensive line, and it's really showing still throughout this whole year.
Speaking of that, though, and I'm going to let our listeners into a little bit of background here, but remember what I was saying? I couldn't remember that other sports news thing I wanted to talk about. It was Colorado's O-line and Deion Sanders' statement about the O-line. Did you see what Deion Sanders said as far as going forward in the next season about their O-line play?
I think so, a little bit. I think he said what? He said that...
he said something to the effect of, I'll replace them all.
Yep. And I think he will. Like, that's just...
He 100% will.
He's a non-nonsense type of guy. And that's who he is. He's very blunt, and he wants what he wants, and he'll get it when he wants it.
Yes.
And
some people were talking about kind of the that's not the way to go about that, or like, you don't just say it like that, or whatever, blah blah blah. But like, at the end of the day, like, that's what it is, you know? Like, hey, I'm gonna fucking replace him. Now, what the kids obviously understand, or what he may or may not have told them as well, outside of just saying it to the media, is you won't be replaced if you actually step up and perform and do well. He didn't say all that. He wasn't all soft and touchy with them, but like, that's the reality of it. Like I'll replace every single one of them. Unless they perform and step up. Because there's still there's plenty of games left. Like, a couple of them at least, like, they could keep a guard or a tackle or somebody if they truly, truly just got better or started performing well. You know what I mean? Or even if they're young guys and they bring in some older transfers to help them succeed, and they just develop in the program for a couple years, like, maybe they still do start. Maybe they stick around in Colorado and they start by the time they're seniors. But I don't see an issue with what he said at all. Like, that is the reality of their situation. And like you said, he's a no-nonsense guy, and he's just telling you how it is.
And I do like that you mentioned that, if they do step up, he won't replace them all. Because there's one guy that stuck out to in my head from earlier in the year, Trevor Woods. He's a safety for Colorado, number 43. He made a couple of big plays in that Colorado State game with the pick. And he's one of those guys that came back under Deion Sanders' tutelage, and he's performed all fucking year. And he's a great player for Colorado. So I agree. Like, it's either, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen type of shit. And I do like that aspect of Deion Sanders. And there is another aspect, too, is he reminds me of Bill Belichick. I mean, no-nonsense guy. He wants what he wants, and he'll replace your ass if you don't perform. And I do like that aspect. At the end of the day, though, Colorado, they are 4-4, and there's a potential that they're not going to win another game this year. They play
do have a very tough schedule coming up still.
Yes.
And yeah, it'll be tough. What is bowl eligible? 5 or 6?
Six games. And they play Oregon State, which is ranked 16th,
Yep.
Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. I think the only game they win out of that, which would put them at 5 and 7, is Arizona. Yep. And I mean, they might pull a sneaker off against maybe a Utah team that's looking for a rematch against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, or a Washington State team that's just down on their luck. But at the end of the day, Colorado is still Colorado, and hopefully they can turn it around. But I don't think they're gonna.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how the rest of the season goes for them. Obviously, outlook not super hopeful, but still, Deion's success in the year he's been there is still insane. They went from a 1-win team to a 4-win team, and next year I would be absolutely shocked if that was not a 6, 7, 8-win team.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could be a 7-win team next year, but that's next year. This is now.
Yes.
And Colorado is not the greatest football team in the world. No offense, Max. I know you like Colorado. You supported Colorado all year, but I told you in the beginning of the year they'd be lucky if they won a bowl game, and it's on that right track of them not getting to a bowl.
They are on that right track of that not being doable. But they would honestly kick the living shit out of Iowa right now. So
I don't think so. I think
they 100% would.
No, I think Iowa would shut that offense down completely. They would have 3 points, and Iowa would win 5-3. Because think about their
that would mean Iowa would have to score 5 points, which they're not going to do.
Okay. Think about this. Iowa's defensive line versus Colorado's offensive line. Enough said. It's over. Iowa's offensive line.
Colorado's offensive production would be all right. I've looked at the rank. I know we've talked about this before, and I've looked at the rankings of their because I was talking about this with my girlfriend. Colorado has the number 1 worst defense in FBS. Iowa has the number 1 worst offense in FBS. So, we are both in dead last in those perspectives. So, 1, that matchup would be interesting to see. But 2, looking at where we stand defensively ranked compared to where they stand offensively ranked, their offense ranks higher than our defense ranks in the totality. So, putting 2 and 2 together, they win.
No, they don't. They do.
They do.
Beat their ass. Sorry.
They 100% do.
I feel like you need to rip that Iowa hat off your head right now.
I feel like I am just being realistic. I am being realistic. Being realistic. Iowa's defense is not what they were last year.
No chance in the world that Iowa loses to fucking Colorado.
Iowa's defense is not what they were last year.
Oh my! Here we go. No, this is not it. This is
Avery. Look at the schedule comparison. Iowa has not played hardly anybody. Colorado has had ranked teams half this fucking season.
I'm going to give you this. It would probably be a close game. Yeah, it would be.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be close, but Colorado wins that game.
No, they wouldn't.
They do. Trust me, I don't love it. If I were cheering in that game, I'm cheering for Iowa. I've stated that before. I would want Iowa to win. But the reality of it is they probably don't.
No, that's not true. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that. Iowa would still win. They're not going to lose to a 4-4 Colorado school. I'm sorry.
Yes, they would.
No, because it comes down. No, it doesn't. No.
All right, moving on then. Go ahead and talk about Kansas, Oklahoma.
I'm sorry. I'm still pissed off.
Well, I'm pissed off because you always have to call yourself out like, hey, I told you. Hey, I told you. Hey, I told you. And I'm fucking sick of it, so I'm calling you out on some shit.
Anyways, moving on to Kansas versus Oklahoma. Kansas beat number 6 Oklahoma 38-33. Yeah, man. Oklahoma might not be as good as advertised after this.
What's Kansas' record right now?
They're 6-2. They're a good 6-2 team. And we were talking about it, probably Oklahoma versus Texas in the Big 12 championship. Watch out for Kansas. Watch out for Kansas. Kansas might have a shot at being at the Big 12 championship game. If they win out the rest of the year, they could be playing in the Big 12 championship, and I think they'd be pretty impressive because they fire on all cylinders. And fun stat with this, Lance Leopold used to be UNO's football coach before they got rid of the UNO football program. I'm just saying, that's pretty cool. But, yeah, fuck Oklahoma. I don't really like. I mean, I like Oklahoma, but I don't like Oklahoma, and I like a true underdog. I know you do too, so we can at least agree on that. But they do play Iowa State coming up, and so maybe I'll try to tune in for that game because it'll be a good game to watch.
Iowa State is not having a great season, right? They're pretty down bad, if I remember correctly. It's been a little minute. It's been a hot minute since I've tuned in on a game of theirs at all, but I want to say they're down pretty bad.
Iowa State has actually a little bit turned it on. Yeah, they are 5-3 right now in the Big 12. So this is actually not a bad game. So they lost to Iowa 20-13. I think that's the last time we talked about them. Then they went out and lost to Ohio. So I think this might have been the last time, 10-7. And then they beat Oklahoma State, which is actually a pretty decent school. And then they lost 50-20 against Oklahoma. So that's a little rough. But then they beat TCU, they beat Cincinnati, and they beat Baylor, which Baylor's not a bad school. And now they could probably be in the top 25 if they beat Kansas. Well, maybe not, but they could be near there. But they do have
Kansas is now ranked
21.
Or what?
I think they're ranked 21st.
Yes, yeah. Kansas is now ranked. So if Iowa State did beat Kansas, it would be good understanding that they would move up and they would be ranked at least in the top 25.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, well, you got to think though, would they really jump Iowa? That's 6-2, and if Iowa goes out and beats Northwestern and they're 7-2, would they
because
jump?
Northwestern is a dog shit team.
Yeah,
and if Iowa beats them, it means nothing.
Iowa still has a better record and in a better division than
against worse competition, though.
Better division.
We
got to stop talking about Iowa tonight. We're getting way too off track here. Anyway, so that'll be a cool game. Iowa State versus Kansas. It is in Jack Trice Stadium in Iowa, so it'll be a good game of names. But moving on to our other game, and we can mention it briefly. Number 8 Oregon versus number 13 Utah. We both love Utah, but Oregon whooped the fucking shit out of Utah, 35-6.
Yeah, Oregon turned it on. Bo Nix had a great game. Fucking came out ready to go, and I think to them this was their Pac-12 championship a little bit. I think they had it in their heads. Granted, there's Washington in there, so maybe not. But You got to think Utah is what, a 2-time champ right now in the Pac-12. They're back-to-back champs this past year. So Oregon wants to see themselves winning a Pac-12 championship. This is a team that's won it the past 2 years. I think they came in their heads thinking we're winning the championship right
here. Yeah, I agree. And seeing number 8 Oregon versus number 13 Utah, it's just maybe Oregon is a playoff team this year. Maybe they had one bad step against who'd they lose to? Washington?
Probably.
Yeah, I think they lost to Washington. And that was only 36-33. I think Oregon still has playoffs on their mind and they're ready to go kick the shit out of anybody they play.
Yes. And after this win, they're currently ranked number 6, so they're in contention. They could get there.
Yeah, and your boy Bo Nix might have been his Heisman game right there because that Utah defense is nothing to snuff at. We've talked about it all the time. How much of this goes back to Nate Johnson's quarterback play as a freshman? Do you think it's a different game if Cam Rising would have played this year?
No,
I think so.
It's obviously a different game. There's no doubt that it's a different game if Cam Rising is in. Does that make a big enough swing to give Utah the dub? No, I don't believe so.
For sure. But, yeah, that'll be a great game coming up. That was a great game to watch to see what Oregon was really made of.
Yes. Now, getting into some of our upcoming games that we have here, we've already mentioned Iowa's going to play Northwestern. Super frustrating because this game is going to be on Peacock. Who the fuck has Peacock subscription? Fucking be on CBS or Fox or some shit that I can actually watch. So that's just annoying there. But there was something else I was going to say about this game and I just forgot. So you go ahead.
Isn't it at Wrigley? It's at Wrigley Field?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's at Wrigley Field, so that'll be a cool game. I always like when Iowa plays up at because I know a couple of years ago they played at Soldier Field when they played Northern Illinois, and now they're playing at Wrigley. So that'll be cool. It's in Chicago. It'll be a fun game, but I do think Iowa will pull it off and dominate Northwestern.
Iowa definitely has to pull this off. Northwestern is an absolute dog shit program right now.
For sure. Well, they fired Pat Riley and halfway
Exactly.
through the year. They shouldn't have. I mean, I get it. You know,
I just remembered what I was thinking of now. What kind of Brian Ferentz are we about to see? You know, first game after he gets told he's not going to return at the end of the season, but he's still here. Like, is he taking the approach like you were kind of saying of like, I'm going to try to put up as many points as I can, not that he's going to be capable of doing it at all? Or does he just kind of say, whatever, like maybe fuck you, Iowa, like I'm not going to put up a single fucking point?
it could go either way. I guess we got to tune into Peacock and figure it out. I don't know. I never thought of the other side that you just mentioned, that he's like, oh, fuck this. Fuck you guys. But I also think he's auditioning for an offensive coordinating position somewhere. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, he wants to put his best foot forward for a coaching position, because a coaching staff's not going to bring you on if you just give up and lay over.
Definitely.
They still want to fight.
That's a good point. Is he, at this point, he's trying to resume build. Like, hey, these are going to be the final games on my resume. I'm going to try to do the absolute best I can in the hopes that someone will call me up and say, hey, yeah, we liked what you did there. Come join.
But our next game, man, number 5 Washington versus 20 USC. Who do you got, Washington?
Yeah, Washington's going to kick the living shit out of Caleb Williams and USC.
Be careful for a trap game. That's all I'm saying. Like, I mean, USC still has one of the best offenses in college football. Like, I don't think Caleb Williams is that great, but if they get into a shootout, like, that's the type of game USC wants to play. They don't want to play a defensive battle. They want to play in a shootout. And because Caleb Williams can win shootout games, he can't win when he's under pressure. And he's not very good against top 25 teams as of lately, the last couple of years. So it could be a good game, but I do hope Washington does kick the living dog shit out of USC. Because
yes, I think I could see the potential for an upset, but just Caleb Williams is not that good.
Yeah.
like you just said, he struggles against top 25 teams. Like, you want to make the argument of like, who have you played? It's like, okay, who have you played? Well, I've played this team, and this team. Yeah, and you lost every single one of them. So, like, you're not good. He's not even in the Heisman talks anymore. He's completely out of the race. Like, that's how poor he's been doing this season. I don't want him as a Bear.
I really hope he does not show up as a Chicago Bear next year. But anyways, another good game that we're going to see is number 14 LSU versus number 8 Alabama. All I got to say in this game is Alabama wins this game. They're right back in contention of making the college football playoffs. Even after everybody wrote them off, even you, even me, after they lost to Texas. Well, Texas is the number 17 in the country. Of course, that's a good team too. And I think if Alabama, and this just screams out the perfect Nick Saban game, that everybody's calling me out saying, like, Alabama's having a down year. They're not there anymore. Nick Saban's going to come out and he's going to prove everybody wrong, beat number 14 LSU, and then make a run for the college football playoffs, beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and then guess what? They are right there in the playoffs.
All right. 2/3 big issues with what you just said. One, you said if number 8 Alabama beats 14 LSU, 8 versus 14.
This is a wrestling.
You let me talk. If they beat them, they go up in the top 4.
I'm not saying they go.
Yeah. That is what you just said. That does not happen because you should win. An 8 should be to 14. That just like solidifies them as an 8. I know that always doesn't work perfectly because how other teams move and whatnot. Like, there's more motion than that. But also, you said they lost to Texas, who's number 7. That is
right.
One position above them. Also not in the top 4 right now. They should lose to Texas. If they truly are number 8 and Texas is number 7, they should lose that game. And they did lose that game. If Texas was number 1 and that was their only loss, I could see the case for the argument. Like, yeah, you lost to the team that might actually win it all. But I do not think they're in contention at all. Like, even just beating 14 LSU, like, that doesn't put them back in contention.
I'll tell you 2 reasons why they are real quick. One, we've said it before, the Pac-12 is going to cannibalize each other in this year in college football. Right now, number 5 Washington versus number 5 Washington, number 6 Oregon. Those are
Both
two
teams that are not currently in the top 4 yet.
Right. But if Alabama goes out and they run the table, they beat LSU, this is the starting point. If they beat LSU right here, they win the rest of their games, they're going to be in the SEC championship.
Who are the rest of their games?
Alabama, the rest of their games is. All right. They got LSU, Kentucky, Chattanooga, and Auburn. They're going to win the rest of their
Not ranked. Is Auburn ranked?
Kentucky's ranked. 23.
Oh, what's Kentucky ranked?
23. So they beat 14 LSU, 23 Kentucky, Chattanooga, and Auburn. Guess what? That's 2 ranked teams. They end up in the SEC championship, and they beat Georgia, the number 2 team in the
non-top 10 ranked.
Let me finish. They beat the number 2 team in the country. Well, and Georgia might be number 1 at that point. They beat number 2 or number 1 Georgia at this point. A couple of these teams fall, they're right back in playoff contention. I'm not saying they're in the playoffs, but I'm saying they are right back at 4, 5, 6. They're right back in the talk of being in the college football playoff, especially if they do go out and beat Georgia. And that's why I'm saying Alabama is not dead yet. They had one game against number 7 Texas, and they only lost 34-24, and it was a lot closer than that score shows. I think they have a good shot at still being in the college football playoffs.
There would have to be a lot of movement and a lot of things to happen. I won't say it's not possible, but it's so unlikely that it ain't happening. We watched TCU lose their championship game, and they were still in it. Kansas didn't go in at all, whatever. Slightly different situations, I know. But still, to that principle, this one game. One, I don't think they beat Georgia. If they do come down to them in the SEC championship, they're not going to beat them. It's Georgia. 2, just the math doesn't make sense. You're number 8. We're getting too far along in the season. You got to be at least top 6-ish right now. I don't know. There's a few games left, I guess, but I don't think they're fairly well dead. They could get there. It'd be a long shot, but they are hanging on by a thread.
That's all I'm saying. They're in contention. I'm not saying they're a playoff team. I'm just
in contention is different than hanging by a thread to me. In contention to me is you got a real chance at this. They don't. They have a miracle to happen.
No, I don't think so. I think they're in contention. They're a well-run organization. They're a well-run coach. Nick Saban has a proven track record of proving doubters wrong like you. And I'm not saying I'm a Roll Tide Crimson fan. I don't like Alabama. But Alabama also has a history of proving people wrong all the fucking time. And that's all I'm saying. But anyways, let's give college football recap right there. We got a little heated on there. A couple of times.
We will get into our NFL recap now. Bears versus Chargers. The Bears lost pretty badly. I mean, 30-13 doesn't look horrible, but it felt a lot worse in the game.
Yeah. I just got one thing to say. I told you Tyson Bagent was not that great. I am still not a Tyson Bagent fan. I like Tyson Bagent as a backup quarterback. And it goes back to the thing we say, but a part of me is okay with this loss in a weird way. I'm at that part of the year where when the game turns on, I'm a diehard, let's go Bears, bear down. But when the game is off and I realize we have lost and we fall to 2-6, I'm like, well, we're moving up to that top pick. And also, it was a double winner for me because 2 games prior to Justin Fields getting hurt, he went for 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and looked like a really good quarterback in the NFL. Tyson Bagent tonight, let's go back to his first game. Tyson Bagent in his very first game, 162 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Not bad for an undrafted guy. I know you love your undrafted guys, especially from the D2 college. That's fine. But this game against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, he did not look great. He had 3 picks. 1 of them was his fault, of course. 1 wasn't his fault at the end of the game, but 1 was, it could have been the receiver's fault. Speaking of receivers, fuck Velus Jones. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, Velus Jones, he should probably be let go at this point. I mean, we saw only bad things out of last season with him. Does not help his case whatsoever this season. And going back to that last Bagent touchdown, just the play calling there.
Yeah.
Because this was the situation, right? This was no, I'm thinking of the Packers game. I can't remember what I'm thinking of. This wasn't the 4th and long and he tried to heave it downfield, was it?
No, that was the Vikings game the week prior.
That was the Vikings game. Okay. I was mixing up games there for a second. I thought so. But yeah, no, it was a rough game. It did not look great. To me it was the defense. Like, where the hell was the defense at? The Chargers were just moving the ball, cruising along, like looking absolutely unimpeded.
Yeah. And this goes back to Matt Eberflus. I mean, he's our defensive coordinator since Alan Williams resigned, right? They've looked worse. I feel like they haven't looked great since Matt Eberflus has taken over the defense. Matt Eberflus, you were hired because you were a great defensive coordinator. You suck. And when are we going to let go of this guy? It's going to be after this year. He's not going to be the Bears head coach for much longer. But with you mentioning the defense, we did beef up our defense a little bit with getting Montez Sweat.
Yeah, we got Montez Sweat. He's edge rush, right? He's an edge rush president. So he would have been on the other side and or rotating with Chase Young, the other big edge rush on the Commanders. We wanted Chase Young. I know that was kind of the talks or the rumors that we were talking about getting Chase Young. We didn't get him. We got Montez Sweat, a name I'm not as familiar with as I am Chase Young. Hopefully he's just as productive, but I don't really know.
He's better than Chase Young. He's better production-wise than Chase Young. The only thing is, Chase Young, he has more potential. That's the difference between the two. Chase Young, he has so much more potential, a little bit younger. But Montez Sweat is still a great defensive end in the NFL, and he's been a great defensive end for Washington. We gave up a second round. The one thing I don't like about this trade is he's on his last year of the contract, and we traded for a guy that's on his last year of the contract, and we're 2-6. This is a move that a playoff team makes for a playoff push. This is not the move a 2-6 team that knows they're not great and not going to make the playoffs. We don't make that move. And so, like, that's why I'm frustrated. Of course, they could franchise tag him and he could play in Chicago for a year. But that's still giving up a lot of money to franchise tag somebody. And then, two, the other perspective of it is even if we want a long-term deal, doesn't mean he wants to sign with Chicago.
Yeah, that is a key issue of wanting to get good players in Chicago. Is it goes back to that kind of like Iowa of announcing the Fairings retirement and whatnot. Is like you need players to want to be there as well. Like It's a little bit easier in the NFL because you can draft and sign and stuff. It's not like recruiting where you have to fully convince a player to come to you, but you do still have to have a little bit of that player being okay with being there. They don't necessarily have to really want to go there. They don't necessarily have to pick you over everybody else, but there should be a degree of acceptance of I am okay with going here. I am okay with trying my hardest here. I do want to be here.
For sure. But moving on, since we're running out of a little bit of time, the Bengals, they played the 49ers this upcoming week, and the Bengals won 31-17. A lot of people said the Bengals were dead. Joe Burrow's kind of back. He played through that injury that he had. And the 49ers, they just traded for Chase Young after dropping 3 straight.
Yeah. What has happened to the 49ers? They have not been looking great lately. Like you said, past 3 games, lost. Like what happened?
Yeah, no, I think they've just played good competition, and people are starting to shut down Christian McCaffrey. He's fighting through injury with his oblique. I think there's a couple of things with that. He's their whole run game right there, Christian McCaffrey. And it comes back to quarterback play. Brock Purdy has not looked great.
Yeah. Just to keep things rolling, speaking of quarterback play and speaking of injuries, we also had the Vikings taking on the Packers last Sunday, and Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. So Vikings are in a little bit of a situation right now as far as quarterback play is concerned because they have Justin Jefferson out already too.
Right. They did trade for Josh Dobbs. I thought it was funny with Josh Dobbs because if you think about it, dude, like Josh Dobbs, he just played 8 games for the Arizona Cardinals as their starting quarterback. And now he's going to go to Minnesota and he's going to finish out the season. When's the last time you've seen a quarterback get traded halfway through and started for 2 different teams? Like I know we saw Baker Mayfield last year, but he didn't even start all the games in Carolina. He got benched after 2.
Like so there was competition there. Like who are the Cardinals rolling with right now then?
They got Clayton Tune, but evidently Kyler's supposed to be back next week.
Gotcha. So they'll be rolling with Kyler again. That makes sense. That makes it like, hey, Kyler's down right now. We need a guy. Here's Josh Dobbs. Oh, Kyler's coming back. Vikings need a guy. Go ahead, take him. Like, we don't need him anymore. That seems like a good trade. Where do you think the Vikings go from here?
No, I think the Vikings, it's hard, right? Because they just moved to 4-4. And they just climbed back because they started off 0-4. And I'm not going to lie, Kirk Cousins has been playing MVP caliber football. He's been the best part of that team, and he's like fought through Justin Jefferson. He's fought through a shitty defense, and they're 4-4. Like, they're only 2 games away from the Lions of winning the NFC North. And him going out, it really sucks because now it's like, do you tank for Caleb Williams in like the NFL draft? But right now, I think they won too many games to even tank.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Vikings are just a weird team this season. I haven't really known what to think of them. It's like you said, they go on a little bit of a losing stretch, then they start going on a bit of a winning stretch, and then now this, obviously, I think they continue on with the losing stretch, which, yeah, they're probably okay with because they probably about time to be getting a new quarterback anyway, even if he is going to sit under Cousins and learn a little bit for a while. But Caleb Williams would be perfect for them, mostly just because I don't like either of them.
For sure.
But last game we'll recap real quick here, Raiders versus Lions.
Yeah, just a bounce back game for the Lions after they got blanked by the Ravens. But also, like, the more news is on the Raiders side, Josh McDaniels has been fired by the Las Vegas Raiders. So no head coach. They're going with the interim now. He deserved it. They were trash, terrible with Josh McDaniels. So hopefully they can bring somebody in that's solid. Also, they're benching Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of the year, and they're going with rookie Aiden O'Connell because he's played really bad.
Yeah, Garoppolo definitely does not look like Garoppolo right now. I don't know if it's a Raiders thing. I don't know if he is just washed up and done, but, like, he seems like he's not playing like himself, or he does not have the same kind. He's never been great. Like, he's never been a I'm going to win a Super Bowl kind of guy, but he's always been a fairly consistent, like, we'll get the job done type of guy.
For sure.
Right now, just we're not seeing that out of him.
Yeah. You want to swing into some of these upcoming NFL games?
We'll get into these upcoming games. We'll go in order of the time slots that are going to happen. We've got Dolphins versus Chiefs, which is going to be taking place in Germany, which means it's going to be on at 8:30 in the morning here in the States.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a good game, man. This is the game that you find out if the Miami Dolphins are for real. I think if they can go out and they can beat Kansas City and Germany, we're talking a lot differently about Miami. Because right now they haven't played anybody real this year. And I think if they go out and beat them, they have a good record. I think Miami's record right now is
decent. Not as good as the Chiefs, though, I'm pretty sure. Chiefs only have 1 loss, right? Or 2. They have 2. Well, did we recap Chiefs-Broncos? We didn't even
I don't think we did. Okay,
we completely skipped Chiefs-Broncos. Yeah, the Chiefs lost to the Broncos. First of all, yay, go Broncos. First game in 16 matchups that they've beat the Chiefs.
Insane.
That is crazy.
It's the Matt Nagy effect. That's what I tell my buddy Phil that switched from being a Cowboys fan to a Chiefs fan. Well, you got Matt Nagy. It's the Matt Nagy effect right there. But no, the Miami Dolphins, they're 6-2 too. They're both 6-2. This could be like one of those games you look back at the end of the season and be like, this is why the Miami Dolphins have home field advantage, is because they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But
this is a great game to be happening in Germany because they're actually going to get a really high-level, good football game being played over there.
And also, the Broncos just beat the Chiefs, right? The Broncos lost to the Miami Dolphins earlier in the year, 70-20. So I'm just saying, Miami might win this game. I don't know.
The way things typically would work, you would think that is Miami's winning game right there.
Yeah.
This game being on at 8:30 is honestly awesome for me because I get to watch it. I get to watch it first thing in the morning. Even before I started coaching football, I would always wake up Sunday morning, make breakfast, whatever, blah, 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 get ready for the day. And I'd have to sit around for like an hour or two just waiting for football to kick off. Right. Now, I don't have to wait. It's going to be on. I'm going to wake up and it'll be there just waiting for me.
I like it. I also don't like it. I mean, I feel like we've been having too many Europe games, but I think it's the NFL trying to get us used to Europe times because I guarantee we're going to have an NFL team within the next 10 years in Europe somewhere, whether it's England, Germany. Oh, excuse me. England, Germany, or someplace. I think that's why the NFL keeps scheduling games over there.
They're definitely trying to expand that reach a little bit to become a little bit more global. So it makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of fans over there. Like when I studied abroad, like there were plenty of football fans still. So I think it's cool that they're actually getting out there a little bit and giving them something to watch.
It's no Premier League, but it's something.
It's something for sure. But we'll get into our noon games here with our very own Chicago Bears facing the New Orleans Saints. I don't know what to think. We'll start with this. Bagent's going to be starting again. I don't know why Fields is not. They never specifically said Fields was out for the week. They just said Bagent was, and by they I mean Eberflus. Just said Bagent was starting. They never specified Fields being hurt.
The last thing I heard was he's week to week. So he's week to week now, I guess. I mean, Eberflus is terrible at communicating with the media. I hate to say it. He's bad, man. Like, I thought Bill Belichick didn't have, like, a personality, but Eberflus just sounds so dull. And that's kind of what this matchup is. Like, when I look at Bears Saints this year, I'm like, ew. Like, it's disgusting. I don't even know if I want to waste my noon kickoff.
I don't want to watch this game. I just don't. I'm done with them. I don't want to see it.
And Derek Carr hasn't looked great in New Orleans either. So, like, maybe the Raiders made a good move moving off. But the Saints are 4-4. I mean, they're not bad. They're just the consistent epitome of average, and they're going to play a really bad Chicago Bears team. And they'll probably win it, and we'll probably fall to 2-7, and it's going to suck. But that's all I got.
Yeah. We'll see if I watch this game. I mean, I'll be kind of at work, so, like, I'm sure I'll be tuned in a little bit to it, but not, like, fully invested in it. And who knows? It could be shutting it off altogether if it is truly disappointing. If it's real disappointing in the first quarter and I'm not liking what I'm seeing, I'll probably just shut it off and decide to watch something else instead.
For sure.
But curious to see how this one goes, because this one could also be a potential, like, if the Bears do win this game, yeah, Saints are real average and mediocre, but, like, that'd be 3 wins so far in our season, Like, that's more than we honestly expected after the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but at the same time, I do want to win this game because I want to win a couple more so we don't have Caleb Williams in our sights, because I really don't want Caleb Williams.
I don't think we have Caleb Williams in our sights anyway. I think regardless, if we have a first-round pick, well, because that truly depends on the Panthers.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily have too much to do with us. That has to do entirely with the Panthers.
The Panthers did win this week.
They did win their first game.
Yeah, against
They're officially 1-6.
Yeah, 1 versus 2. Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud. And Bryce Young, even though C.J. Stroud's had a better year, Bryce Young got the better of him. So congrats to that. I mean, that's pretty impressive. But
does that sway your opinions of Stroud being better than Young's?
I love Stroud, man. He's still good. Like,
no, I feel the same way. I like fully support Stroud over Young. I mean, you're talking 22 guys versus 22 guys. Like, you can't compare to one guy for the entirety of it. And it was a very last-second win, too. It was like a very last-minute field goal to win it by 1 point. It's not like they blew them out or anything.
For sure. The last game we're going to talk about, the Bills versus the Bengals. And the reason we're going to talk about this, one, it's going to be a great game. I mean, Bills versus Bengals.
After the playoff game from last, was this the AFC Championship game?
No, divisional round.
Divisional round.
Because they went out and lost to the Chiefs. Yeah. But no, this is going to be a great game. One, like, Bills Bengals, they kind of started building a rivalry within the last couple of years. And two, a year ago, we mentioned Adam Johnson, the hockey player, dying on the field. Well, Damar Hamlin last year almost died on the field. And that's why you mentioned NFL, and in the United States, they have first responders right there. And he almost died on the field a year ago, and on Sunday Night Football, believe it or not. So this is, kind of like the rematch that we never got to see after they finished that game. And it's a little somber, but at the same time, DeMar's playing, and he's playing well this year. He's actually their starting safety now. And
there you go.
I think this can be a bounce back game for the Bengals or for the Bills. But at the same time, Joe Burrow, when he gets hot, man, when he's off, he's really off. Like, earlier in the year, he takes a while to get going. But when he gets going, Joe Burrow's probably the third best quarterback in the NFL.
Well, and this will be an interesting game, too, because the Bills are they not in the same kind of boat as the Bengals right now in the first place? Like we're talking last year, they're in the divisional round. Like we're waiting to see who's going to win the Super Bowl, like Bills or Bengals. It's whoever comes out of this game. I mean, the Chiefs are there, but like truly, these guys were the talk. And then now this season, you'd expect them to kind of be back, kind of right back where they were. Like, all right, let's go make another run for it. But Bills have struggled a little bit. Bengals, we know, have faltered some. So instead of a super, super high level matchup, it'll still be a really good, competitive, high level game. But we're also seeing a little bit two lesser teams than we did facing off last year, I feel.
I don't know if it's a lesser team. I just don't think they've played to their potential. I do think that it's a get right game. Whoever wins this game is like the epitome of, hey, this is our get right game. We go out, we win this game, because right now the Bengals are 4-3, the Bills are 5-3. So either the Bills are moving to 6-3 on the year, which is pretty good record in the NFL, or the Bengals are moving to 5-3, which is still pretty good record in the NFL. And I think the Bengals need it more because the AFC East is like, well, I don't know, because the Dolphins are really good, especially if they beat Kansas City. But the Bengals, they play in a tough AFC North. Right now I'm watching Pittsburgh beat Tennessee. And like the AFC North, they got the Ravens, they got the Ravens, they got the Bengals, they got the Browns that look good with PJ Walker. I mean, like they're in Pittsburgh. Like I think that AFC North is probably like the Pac-12 of the NFL this year.
Yeah. This one way or another, like I said, this is definitely going to be a really, really good game to watch Sunday night. So it's actually a good primetime matchup. I feel like we've had some primetime matchups lately that have just been a little
Chargers Bears.
Yeah, exactly. Right there. There you go. Like what the fuck are we watching? This is our primetime game? But no, this one should actually be a good one. I'm excited to see it. I'll be tuning into this one for sure. It's not going to be one that I just kind of put on for background noise. This one I'm going to want to watch. And that being said, we're a bit over our usual time limit and whatnot, so we'll go ahead and wrap her up and sign her off.
All right. All I got to say is go like, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You know the deal. But also, thanks for watching, guys. I know we got a couple of new listeners. I appreciate you guys out there for tuning in. And I got 2 words to say. Bear down!